Hey travelers, welcome back to another video. In this video, I had the honor and privilege of interviewing none other than Maia Chaka. She is the first Black female referee for the NFL or the National Football League. Y'all, this video is so inspiring. You definitely have to watch. In this video, I talk with Maia about her journey of becoming an NFL referee, the obstacles that she has overcome, and she provides words of wisdom for those that want to follow in her footsteps. But before we begin, make sure you smash the like button and smash the subscribe button for more content like this. All right, y'all, let's get into today's video. All right, Maia, can you tell us about your story? How did you become the first Black female NFL? Walk us through your journey.
Wow. So it really started out just having a love for athletics. And that started like at a young age, like very young. And I can just remember always going outside and being the only girl in the neighborhood and just playing with the boys. And my parents never discouraged me from doing that. You know, they weren't the type of parents, oh, you're a girl, you need to wear a dress and have tea parties and play with Barbies. They were just like, no, whatever you want to do. We want you to make sure that you do it. And so, it just led to me going outside playing basketball, playing wrestling in the yard, football, whatever it was that, got me out the house and allowed me to be active and happy. That's all I did. And, as I got older, I played every sport except football. That was the only sport we couldn't play as an organized sport, in high school. I played basketball was my number one, volleyball, softball, track, tennis, everything but football. And so as I started, to graduate high school and I wanted to choose the career path, I wanted to be a health and phys ed teacher just because my natural love for sports and athletics. So while I'm studying and pursuing my degree in health and PE at Norfolk State, I did a work study working with intramurals, like student activities. That was my work study. And I would go work in the gym and, help to hire referees to do basketball and football games. Well, the intramural games like flag football and intramural basketball. And, I didn't know the difference between a good official and a bad official back then. I was just getting what fit into our university's budget. And so I didn't really understand that we were paying for some of the worst officials that you possibly could get. And so just like anybody else who heckles bad referees, that was also me. So, and, I'm young and immature and not really knowing. So I'm giving these guys a hard time because they're making some of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life. And one of them dared me. He was like, you know what, if you think you can be so great at this, why don't you try it? I bet you can't be better than me. And so that just stuck in the back of my mind. And it just sat there. I said, I might just think about that, And once I graduated, I started teaching health and phys ed, and I was still actively playing basketball quite a bit. And a fellow teacher of mine talked me into starting to officiate football. And I wanted to officiate basketball first because that's what I knew. I know that game like the back of my hand. I didn't know football. And so this guy who teaches with me doesn't look like me at all. He's a white male, listens to all the music I don't listen to, is an outdoorsman, fishing, but we were co-teachers, we taught together. And so our love for athletics and our love, just for sports and for students, because we both taught at at-risk high school, that was always our common bond and our common ground of just having humanity. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself at that time. And I think it's real important that people understand that, because a lot of times, especially as minorities, we look for that push to come from people that look like us. But my initial push came from somebody who doesn't look like me. And this was just me, believing in his word and him believing in me and, him just getting my foot in the door for football officiating. So I'm very fortunate for that. So I started working high school football in my area. After 3 years, I worked the state championship, and then I started working Division I football pretty much like the year after I worked my state championship, which is unheard of. Most people, the natural progression is to go from high school to like junior college or like Division II, Division III, and then progress up straight to Division I. I was very lucky to get a shot at Division I football because I went into like this clinic or this camp where officials are trying out, to make it to the college ranks. And I was applying just to make it to Division III. But when I walked into the room, I walked in with 122 people in the room. I was the only Black person. I was the only woman. and I'm in the mountains in Virginia somewhere. And people looked at me and it was almost like the whole record stopped. And the guys just, rolled their eyes, pushed their chairs up. It was, you can tell right off the bat, I wasn't welcomed. And me being naive in the situation, not knowing, of really how to work this room yet, because this is a total different dynamic. I'm coming from an HBCU. I'm working in an alternative high school, which is 85% African American. I've always been in my comfort zone as, with my people. And for me to walk in this room and it's completely out of my comfort zone, I had to own it. And I just sat at the one opening table, and I didn't know it was a reserve table for all the keynote speakers that were there with the supervisors. I didn't know, because it was the only table I was allowed to sit at, and they didn't push me away. So I sat down like I was somebody. I don't know. I just sat there, and a guy comes up and he starts a conversation with me, and we didn't talk about it. The guy's name was Gerald Austin. He became my supervisor for Conference USA. And he'd been an NFL referee for 27 years, had worked 3 Super Bowls. He's pretty much like the man. So it's like, imagine yourself walking into a room and not knowing who Diddy is. And you have a conversation with Diddy. You see what I'm saying? So he could open up so many doors. So that was my situation in the other world. I didn't know who this guy was, because, nobody taught me how to go up through the ranks of officiating. They just said, hey, work this. Hey, go to this camp. I didn't know how to network. I just went in. And I want to do my job because this was something I love to do. I thought this was someplace where I could just get better. Right. And Gerald and I just had a conversation, had nothing to do with football. I don't know, I just thought this was an older white male trying to, hit on me or pick me up. There was nothing that was crossed the HR lines either. It just was a casual conversation. And when they introduced him as being the keynote speaker, and he reaches over, taps me, hey, kid, I got to go. And I'm like, what did I just say to this man? He's like, the man, he's a keynote. Guess I need to open up my program and actually look at the photos. Yeah. But, again, that's just me being naive. Well, he calls me back a couple of days later and asked me to come work down at East Carolina. And I had already been studying college rules for about 3 years, because working on a high school association I was working with, they started preparing me for college early because they saw something in me. And again, I'm not realizing what I'm doing while I'm doing it. I'm just doing what I'm told. I just had something in me. I want to master being a football official. I never played football. Give me all the knowledge you got, and I'm just going to soak it all up. So that's how I was. I never turned down games. I was always early or on time, well dressed, very professional. That was my approach from the beginning. And when everybody saw that, I guess they want to start grooming me because they saw something in me, that they knew that I had what it takes to get to the next level. So they started working me ahead, and, and I'm very grateful for that. And so I go and I work at East Carolina in front of Gerald, and then he hires me. And I've worked in Conference USA for 3 years. After my 3rd year, I worked my first bowl game, and I was interviewed by the NFL after my 3rd year in Conference USA, and that was 2014. And before I walked into that interview, I had a really good conversation with Gerald, and he told me, I just thanked him for giving me an opportunity. And I said, do you think I'm ready to work in the National Football League? He goes, no, because you weren't ready to work in Conference USA, but you worked your way through and you earned it. And then he also said, I took a chance on you, and I gave you this opportunity because I saw the way that people looked at you when you walked in that room. And I knew that if you would have went through the ranks, you never would have made it. He said somebody would have said something about you, discouraged you, or did something, because that footprint, they're all red and they're good old boys, was just the way that he worded it. And I was very fortunate that he was that progressive then. This was back in, it's 2011. You don't think that you still have to worry about that in 2011, but then again, we saw everything that happened in 2019, 2020. So, and we're still fighting against that. But this was another male who didn't look like me, who was ahead of his time, who just genuinely wanted to see me succeed. And so by working through him in Conference USA, I worked for 10 seasons there. After my 7th season, I tried to move to work into different conferences, like Power 5 conferences, like ACC, SEC, Big Ten, things that were in my footprint, but they didn't hire me. And I don't know if it was because maybe they just didn't believe that I had the skill set to, or because of my gender, or if it was because of my race. I don't know. But I just knew that all the big conferences that were in my footprint didn't hire me. And so I ended up getting hired to work in the Pac-12. And I'm on Virginia, on the East Coast in Virginia Beach, and I'm flying to the West Coast working at UCLA, Washington, Oregon State, Oregon, Hawaii, pretty much every weekend, and still going back and going to work on Monday morning as a teacher, and jumping back and forth with time zones. So, but that was just the grind that I put myself in, because I knew the sacrifice, that it would take, and I worked with the Pac-12 for about 3 or 4 years. And then voila, I finally got the call to come up to the big leagues. So that's that in a nutshell. That's my progress. But there are a lot of roadblocks. There were some discouraging moments along the way. There were some times I did want to quit, and there was a time I didn't think I was going to make it. But we just stick to our guns and stick to the grind.
Yeah. And so if someone is having a hard time and they're like feeling challenged right now, and they want to quit, what would you say to them?
So for me, when I hit my point where I felt like I wasn't going to move, because through my 7 years of training with the NFL, there was like a 2-year period where they didn't call me at all. I knew that my name was still on the list, but I wasn't active. I wasn't going to training camps. I wasn't getting a call to work scrimmages. I wasn't getting a paycheck from them. So I thought I was done. And, it hurt for quite a bit, but then I took all my energy and I focused it into something else. But I still made sure that I stayed the course for football. I still worked in the Pac-12. I still did everything I needed to do as a professional football official to keep myself relevant. But in order for me to, to heal and to feel better about rejection, at that time, I started working basketball, and I became a really good basketball official. And what ended up happening with that, everything that I was missing as a football official, I picked up as a basketball official, and I was able to merge the worlds. And that's what helped, propel me. So whenever there's a point where you feel like you're being stagnant, it's really not cliche when they say, everything's going to work in due time. It's all about timing. It may not be when you want it, but you're going to get it in perfect timing. Had I gotten hired when I wanted to be hired, I don't think I was ready at that point. Like, with the amount of scrutiny that we go over from the media and, just how demanding the job was, maybe I wasn't mature enough in that professional world. Maybe we weren't under the right leadership just yet, as a free nation at that time. There are all these different variables that go into it, but, you can't get, and this is like anybody who's working a job. Right. And you're working for that promotion and you keep getting overlooked, you just have to find a way to fine tune yourself. And then when it gets to a point where you really don't love what you're doing, then you may need to change the course of action. But I still love to officiate football, so I never left it alone. But I just kept finding ways to reinvent myself and to feel better and to distract myself from rejection. I've been dumped before. I've been cheated on, women, we used to be rejected from time to time. So it wasn't any different than that. I said, this man don't want me. Football don't want me, so I'm gonna get me a new one. I got me a side piece. I got basketball. Yeah. And so football decided to put a ring on it.
And so if somebody wants to become an NFL referee, how do they go about doing that? And how do they overcome the obstacles? I know you talked about putting your energy into different places like basketball, but how do you, is there a blueprint?
So what, there really isn't a blueprint. But in order to get to the NFL, what has to happen is, if you notice, I talked about my work has always been consistent from when I first jumped in. When I first started working high school football, I approached it every single week. And even Pop Warner games, I approached it every single week like I was working somebody's playoff game, somebody's Super Bowl, something. Every game to me was a big game. So it all starts with your foundation and your fundamentals as a professional, and that just becomes the sky's the limit for you, not just in officiating, but in anything you choose to approach. It's what they call it, the Mamba mentality, like Kobe. Yeah. So it's like, you gotta have that grind. you got to be the person who wants to be in the gym shooting around still, once everybody's done from practice. You got to be the person who wants to go and put in like the extra reps in the weight room. You have to be that type of person. And once you establish that work ethic, that just opens up so many opportunities. And I would say, that the skills that I gained from basketball that kind of sort of set me apart from everybody else, I became real decisive really quick. And, there was no more hesitation in my decision making. Whether I was right or wrong, I was making a decision and I was going to stick by it.
What do you mean by that? Like when you say you were real decisive?
So if we take a look at, we'll look at in football terms. Sometimes you have those plays that go to review and it's a tight catch on the sideline. And, you have to make a ruling, whether you rule that he caught it or whether you rule that it's incomplete, just make a ruling. They want to see you make a ruling. They don't want to see you run up and then look around and hesitate, because then everybody knows you're unsure. But if you go in solid and you go, boom, incomplete, and they go and review it and they say, hey, that's a catch, they're okay with that because I went in strong with my decision. And that's something that's fixable. We don't want to have a lot of those. And for the record, I don't have a lot of my calls being overturned because I'm so I pay attention to detail so much, and that helps with my confidence and it helps with my decisiveness. It's like I'm 1,000% sure when I make a decision that this is what I saw. And I'm even though I may be wrong, not often, I may be wrong, but when you have that type of conviction in you that that you're correct, it shows in your body language, it shows with the way that you communicate. But now when it comes back and you're wrong, you have to be able to admit your fault and take ownership and accountability for that. So now if my call does get overturned, you got to admit fault, like, hey coach, I'm sorry, that's something I missed. My angle was a little off, or, I really felt that he had, that he was in bounds, or, you have to still take ownership of that, because then that's when they respect you.
That's good. So decisiveness is one characteristic I hear about being an NFL referee. What are some other characteristics?
Holding yourself accountable is another one, like I basically discussed. And, it's being resilient. So everybody's going to make a mistake, right? Nobody's perfect. And, we're memes, like referees are memes everywhere. Nobody likes referees. They really don't. If your team loses, we're the first people that they blame. Like, that's just facts. So it's like when you are faced with those situations, it's like, how do you bounce back and recover? Like for example, I was talking about plays being overturned. Well, if I got a call that's overturned, okay, so what? That's water under the bridge. Let's go on and work the next play. So it's like you have to be able to move on very quickly, and still being able to have that confidence and believe in yourself. And then even you have to be human, because we're working together with the same group of guys every single weekend. I mean, I was with the same 9 guys from July to January last year. I spent more time with them than I spent with my family. I was with them 6 months. Wow. Every single weekend, I knew I was seeing these men. And you have to be somebody who is like likable, and not likable to a point where it's phony, but it has to be a genuine and authentic relationship that you develop with these people. And you have to be a crew person. There are a lot of times they chose restaurants that I absolutely hate to eat at, but I would go in and I would find something to eat and I'd sit down with them. If I didn't do it, then I wouldn't be accepted by the group. So there's certain things that you have to do in order to gain their trust.
Speaking of being with the same guys from, July to January or February?
Yep.
What is your average day look like? What does it look like during the season and then versus the off season?
So my average day this season was, this season was a little different because I was still working. I was still working in the school system during the football season. And so my average day, let's go to like game day. If we have a game on a Sunday, we fly in that Saturday. And for me, I try to get the earliest flight in on Saturday so I can sleep all day Saturday. We'll have like a meeting at like 3, a dinner at 6, and then the rest of our time is like to ourselves. But I get in the earliest and I check in early, and I like to just space out because my Monday through Friday from like working in a school is hectic because I'm always serving somebody. It's not, I don't have my alone time. I didn't have my downtime. I'm always, what am I doing to help service someone? So I really take advantage of those Saturdays. I get my Uber Eats, which is normally like a juice. I try to find a juice bar, and I try to get about 6 juices, and they're mostly like green. I love like anything that's like spinach, apple, like apple, kale, lemon, something like that, maybe a little bit of ginger. And I do all liquids. I try to do all liquids like on Saturday. And Sunday on game day, I like beet juice, like apple, beets, and carrots. And I'll drink that normally during the game because that helps keep my adrenaline up, because you don't want to eat heavy and you're out there making those decisions because you feel sluggish. So I juice a lot during game week. So we'll work our Sunday game. Let's say it's a regular 1 o'clock kick. We'll work the entire game. 3:30, the game's done. We have to hurry up and shower, and then we head straight to the airport. So we don't even stick around like in the city. We're straight to the airport like after our game is done. And I'm getting home on a Sunday probably between like 11 p.m. and midnight, sometimes 1 a.m. And then I'm getting back up and going to work again Monday morning. Now, all of our reports, like if we threw any fouls or anything in the game, like any penalties, any flags, or if we have anything to write up, specifically anything that was said between the coach, just paperwork, that's normally done on the way to the airport, or it's done on the airplane, but it has to be submitted by noon on Monday. So if I don't get that stuff done Sunday after the game, first thing Monday morning, while I'm on my lunch break or before lunch break or before I get to work, I try to find about an hour or 2 hours within my day where I can get that paperwork completed. But it's tough. And then Monday through Friday, you're working, but then you're also taking calls throughout the week. You're watching your game film that from the game that you just watched, and you have to watch film on the teams that are going to play the following week. You may have supervisors call you. You got mentors calling you. You got people that you're mentoring calling you. So it's a real busy week. It's really like about an 80 to 90 hour work week if you're still really working a full-time job. And so that was tough. And so, I just recently resigned from my full-time job just because it was so much on me, and I wanted to be able just to focus on football for a season.
I didn't know about the paperwork though. That's like a surprise to me.
There's a lot of paperwork that's involved, a lot. And like I said, any interaction that you have, you want to document it because coaches will report it or they'll tell it. So you always want to make sure that you cover all your areas. Yeah.
And what did the kids say about you being a coach or a referee?
Well, it's crazy because some of them don't really find out until because this is not something I walk around and say, hey, this is what I do. They find out when their parents or somebody watches TV, or they say, when I had an interview or something on, their parents will see it, they'll bring it to them. And they're like, you work in the NFL? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, all right. But then, they're in admiration at first. Then after a while, they kind of forget about it because they like me for me. They don't like me because I'm this woman that broke these barriers. And, that's a huge compliment in itself, because I genuinely want to see the kids be successful. And whether you're somewhat of a celebrity or a superstar, or you have this rock star job or not, they don't care if you don't really care for them. And, they're really worried about how am I going to help them get to my level. And if I can't help them reach some level of success like I'm at, I'm no service to them.
What do you wish you had known before you started?
Ooh. Wow. Maybe I wish I would have known all the people that I was talking to, instead of looking at, having to figure out who they were by Google searching or, no, but seriously, I think that's a good one. That's a real good one. One of the things I struggled with the longest was finding a way how to be my authentic self and still be able to fit into this world. Because football officiating is in the NFL is very corporate. It's very conservative. And as a Black woman, when I first came in, they looked at me weird when I had like hoop earrings, Jordans, and ponytails, because everybody was wearing the same khakis and polo. So my business casual looks different from their business casual. And then on top of that, you throw in a mix of hip hop on top of, and it gets to a point where we get tired. Like I got so tired of straightening my hair and doing all the things right to try to meet their standard of what it meant to be professional, as opposed of, being my authentic self from the get-go and then letting them adjust and welcome to that. But then again, at that time, I don't think it was that type of environment. It wouldn't have been that welcoming. Like, I'll kid you not, like I have curly hair. I used to straighten it bone straight every single week and try to wear like little khakis and a blazer and, look real professional, like how they want it to be professional. And I'm just happy that everybody's loosening up on the dress codes some, but I wish that I probably would have been not more vocal about it, but not trying to blend in so much and not really understanding the importance that it's okay to be different. I think that is the only thing that's different. I don't know if that's really something I wish I would have known, but it was just something different that I had to go through at that time.
Or what is the referee culture like?
It's competitive and it's really cutthroat. And that's for it's worse in basketball because there are less positions, there are less people that work in, but football is very competitive because, to get to the NFL, there's only 122 spots to work on field as an on-field official. And there's something about 2,000 people that are in their scouting pool that they're using. And out of that 2,000, you're lucky to make it past the 50 who actually get a chance to be interviewed, and then skim it down to the 30, and then skim it down to the less than 20 who actually get involved in the working with these camps. So, it's very hard. And then once you start, to work on the field, especially in the NFL, the way that we're graded and the way that we're evaluated is very competitive because everybody, we have to have straight A's, to work postseason, to work playoffs, to work Super Bowl. Those people who work those big games, like their accuracy percentage is something crazy, like 98.9%. And like the points, like the 10th of a point, then the 100th of a point, those even count. And so because of that, it's very competitive, trying to make sure that you're doing everything correct and perfect in an imperfect world. And, it can be stressful sometimes because of that, but, it's just part of the job.
How do you deal with that competitiveness and that stress?
I just do me. So it's I don't really have any competition. And that sounds so arrogant. Oh my God, that sounds so arrogant. But I don't have competition. And even when we're talking about the other Black women or the other women who are coming up behind me, I want them, I'm welcoming that. I'm not about to beef with you, man. Go ahead, do you, because you still got to surpass me. My values are still the same. From the beginning, I'm in this to win it. I'm in it to work hard and to make myself the best me. I only compete with me. I look at my performance and I try to elevate it from there. I never compare my growth with somebody else's growth because we're two different people. And I think when you start doing that, you start to lose sight on what's directly in front of you and just lock into what you have and keep mastering that. Look at the feedback that you're given, because they give us direct feedback and direct criticism. Look at that feedback that you're given, that they're telling you, and work from there, so you don't make the same mistake. Don't look at how the person across from you is being graded for the same thing that he did. Don't do that, because you never know. We have two different experience levels, or there may have been two different people that gave us feedback. You never know. So I don't look at what anybody else is receiving. I just focus on how I'm being evaluated, how I'm being critiqued, and what it is that I need to adjust. Because guess what? When you go back and you pull that paper, you can say, hey, well, she was told this, but did she do it? So that's the thing. So I go back, I look at everything they told me, and I try to check all the boxes. I check all my boxes. So if the person that was, downfield or across from me, if he wasn't told something, do you think he's going to change that habit? So I can't focus on what he's doing because we're on two different paths right now. And so it's just really about focusing on you. And that's really how they assess you, and they look at your performance is really gauged off your own growth, and they're not comparing you to other people.
What are some of the travel perks of being an NFL referee?
Man, we fly
in general.
Flying first class all the time. And, yeah. I mean, I got big status anyways on Delta, so I'm always gonna get the big upgrade, But it's like, that is like you become really travel bougie because of that. Like, so if you fly another airline that's not really yours, and now you're sitting in coach or like comfort or something, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Yeah. So, I have become the biggest travel snob because of that. Same thing like with hotels. We always stay in a Marriott property, and so we all have like these huge platinum, titanium, elite statuses that we always get these amazing upgraded. So those are the perks that go into it. And a lot. I also travel outside of officiating, so that works as well. But I think that's like the biggest thing.
What is it like being in the stadium on game day?
Real chill. To me, it's real chill because I always have I'm my beats in, and I'm always listening to some real chill R&B, and that's what zones me out. But the exciting thing is when I have to go in and get the teams, like when the teams are getting ready to come out to the field, and then like the music is just like pumping, and you get to run through the tunnel with the teams. Like you think that you running through the tunnel, like they're looking at you, like you want to high five cheerleaders, but they're not there for that. So that's a very exciting moment. Who else can say that they do that outside the players? There are not that many people that get to run through the tunnel. That's probably my favorite part. And then sometimes you run through and like the smoke's going off too. So that's what game day is like for me.
Yeah, let's talk about responsibilities. What are some of the responsibilities that you have as a referee?
On the field, I call everything except for roughing the passer. And so that's like the position I work on the line of scrimmage, and that's right there in the front where we call, we're right there on the ball. So if you're watching TV, the camera's always either looking right at my face or shooting right at my back, because that's where I'm at where the ball's being snapped. And we're like the skill positions on the field, and it's also the most difficult position to work in the National Football League because we have to do so much. Reading formations, we have to make sure you have a perfect snap, that there's no false start, no offsides, all formations are legal. And then once the play starts to develop, we have to either read pass or run and then adjust to our coverage. So if we're reading run, the first thing I do is look for the blocks that go out front. And I look for holding, blocking the back, illegal low blocks. I look for all that stuff. If we're reading pass, that gets real tricky because you have to know when you can release downfield. And I know I'm probably speaking Spanish to a lot of people. When I say release downfield, that means for me, where am I going to look? Am I going to look at a receiver, or am I going to look at the linemen that are blocking? And it's a passing league. So a lot of times you can gamble by looking downfield and you'll be okay. But these players are so skilled, like when it comes to offensive pass interference or defensive pass interference, you really have to understand what you're looking at and be a really good judge of contact for that. So let's say we have a good play. Now the play's over with, I have to hurry up and run and find where the runner was tackled to let them know this is where we're next going to put the ball into play. And while that's going on, I have coaches talking to me, I have players talking to me, I might have to break up a fight here and there. So it's all that is going like a mile, like about 60 miles an hour, like in your head, and you got to keep up with it. Now, let's say if you have a penalty or a foul or something thrown on a play, I now have to figure out what the foul is, because it may not come from me. It may come from the opposite side of the field. I have to understand what they've thrown. I have to communicate options to coaches, and we try to get this done in less than a minute. And not only am I communicating options, but I also have to start doing math in my head. If we accept this penalty, where are we going to put this ball? If it's declined, where are we going to put this ball? So I'm constantly having to process information, and that never stops. Like it goes all game long. And so again, I'm like the alpha and the omega of each play. We started with a good snap, and we finish it where the person was tackled, and I get all the stuff that happens in between as well.
Do you ever feel pressured by the fans?
No, I don't pay attention to them.
Yeah, you
yeah, I don't really care. Look, I'm fine with that. As long as I'm not on SportsCenter the next day for blowing a call, or I'm not somebody's meme, then we're good.
The NFL Referees Association is the sole representative of referees in the NFL. Do you feel like you have a voice on diversity and inclusion in the NFL?
I like to say I do. So, you know, I'm heard what I need to say. And, you know, I think they're making progress.
How long before you think we'll see a female offensive coordinator?
I don't know. You know, it may be a few years, it may be a good little while from now. I know that you got Jennifer King that's working in Washington, and she was promoted like to the full-time running backs coach. So I think she's probably one of the leaders in that pool right now, who's probably the closest. But then again, I don't know everybody who's in the pool that they're looking at, you know, or where somebody else is actually working. I know she's been in the league for years. I think, wow, maybe 7 years now, 6 or 7 years. She's been there for quite a while, and she's constantly progressing, and she's really good at her job. So I'm rooting for her, you know, to be able to get that offensive coordinator position if that's what she wants to do. There's a lot of responsibilities that go along with it, and I'm pretty sure that there are other ladies that are, you know, that aren't even like known yet, but they're on the radar, and that other clubs and organizations are working with them. So there's no telling.
One thing I love about you is that you are always rooting for something. You always root for another person, you know, and
Yeah.
you stay in your lane, but you cheer on other people that is there. I think that's so good. We need more of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that, man. You got to use your power to empower.
All right. So what's next for you on the field?
Getting ready to go into year 2 and just trying to have a better year 2 than year 1. You know, I had a great year 1, but you know, it's time to step it up, and you know, I'll be eligible to be in postseason and playoffs this year. So that's my goal. Either as an alternate or being on the field, I want to be in the postseason mix.
What is your favorite part about the job?
I get to tell men what to do, and they can't complain about it.
And what are some resources that you would like to share with the audience if they're interested in following your footsteps?
Wow, there was like this one book I read. I can't remember. It was like Verbal Judo, which is like one of the things. And that was just like all the ways that you communicate with people, like on different levels, and what your response should be in certain situations. So I think that's real important, is just to be an effective communicator. And that skill takes you, you know, above and beyond in whatever platform that you're in.
And to conclude, is there anything else that you would like to add before we finish the interview?
It's about me? No. This was amazing, and I'm just really appreciative. You know, you had a different dynamic, a different approach to the interview process, and I really appreciate it. It was refreshing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am truly honored and grateful that you are here today, and I really think that somebody watching, you know, they'll be inspired, and hopefully we'll be right in your footsteps, and we'll see them on TV officiating the games and all that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya. All right, travelers, well, that concludes today's video. I learned so much from this interview, and it was truly a pleasure to interview Maya. Maya, thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your personal journey. In the comment section below, travelers, let us know some key points that you took away from this interview. And until next time, travelers, let's travel with our dreams together. See you later. Bye-bye.